Hi folks, welcome to the video. Today we are talking about presidential and special circumstance amendments. So this is for notes 2.5, and this is actually your last set of notes for unit 2. So we're going to wrap up our remaining amendments today. So your goals for this video, your objectives, are to explain how amendments have changed the structure and function of the federal government, including the presidency and the electoral college. So that's going to be the first set that we talk about. And then explain what the 11th, 21st, and 27th amendments say and what their historical context is. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the electoral college and the amendments that impact it. So first things first, we have to know what is the electoral college. So the electoral college is how we vote for president. Now, this is an indirect way of voting for president. We do not actually vote for the president. We actually vote for electors. So the framers of the Constitution created the electoral college to reflect our federal system. The president is chosen based on electoral votes from the states. So when you go and vote for president, whoever you check off and say that that's who you want to vote for, you are actually voting for electors to then go and cast their votes for that particular person. A candidate is required to win a majority of the electoral college. That means they need to win at least 270 electoral votes in order to secure the presidency. And then the number of electoral votes per state is determined on the number of representatives and the number of senators that they have. So, for example, Ohio has 18 electoral votes because we have 16 representatives and 2 senators. So, as you might be able to kind of tell, states with higher population have more electoral votes. Okay, so that is just kind of some background on the Electoral College. Now, the very first amendment that impacted this way of voting for president was the 12th Amendment. What the 12th Amendment does is provide a procedure for which we elect the president and vice president. And what it does is say that now the election of the president and vice president in the Electoral College will be done on 2 separate ballots. And that also outlines what to do in case of a tie in the Electoral College. Before this amendment, there was only 1 ballot. So electors only cast 1 ballot. And whoever had the most votes became president. The second most was the vice president. However, in the election of 1800, there was an issue because there was a tie in electoral votes between Jefferson and Burr. And there's really no procedure for what to do. This amendment fixed that conflict. So when you're thinking about this amendment, okay, I know it's 12. So we went from 1 ballot in the Electoral College to 2. 1, 2, I know if you add them, it makes 3, but if you squish them together, it makes 12. Okay, so just to show you a visual here, the Electoral College does cast separate ballots for the president and vice president. The 23rd Amendment also impacts the Electoral College. The 23rd Amendment says that Washington, D.C. can finally vote for the U.S. president. And that was the very first election that D.C. was able to participate in was 1964. And what this amendment did was it gave Washington, D.C., our capital, 3 electoral votes. And thinking about why D.C. was originally not allowed to vote for president, so context here, D.C. stands for the District of Columbia. It's a district, not a state. And as a result of that, it did not have any representation in Congress. Only states did. And because it didn't have any representatives or senators, it had no electoral votes. So this amendment changed the way the Electoral College was kind of structured, giving D.C. those 3 electoral votes. So you can think of it like this. I think that's a good kind of rhyme to help you remember. DC gets 3 with 23. Okay. Now, there are a couple of amendments that also impact the presidency. The first is the 20th Amendment, and there's kind of a lot that goes into this, so let's break it down. First and foremost, this is the most important thing. The 20th Amendment changes the date of inauguration, meaning the date when the president takes office. So the 20th Amendment changes the inauguration day to January 20th. Okay, so presidents the term starts January 20th, 20th Amendment. So that might be a way to help you remember. Before this, though, presidents took office on March 4th. So elections happen in November. And before this, they didn't take office until March. Now, as we see through history, right, it doesn't take very long to get to the Capitol, right? Over time, we had advancements in transportation. Candidates and president-elects, as they're called, didn't need the time to actually drive or horse and buggy their way to the Capitol. It's a lot faster. So we moved up inauguration. Another reason why inauguration changed was something called the lame duck. So this amendment is also sometimes called the lame duck amendment. And a lame duck is an elected official who's been in office and their successor, the person replacing them, has already been elected. So this often occurs when the official is going to retire, for instance, or they've reached their term limit. So lame ducks have power that we wanted to limit, because if you think about it, they're on their way out of office. They don't have to worry about consequences of their actions, like voter opinion, getting reelected. They're already out. So they often make some pretty controversial decisions and policies. This amendment, because it's moving up inauguration, is going to shorten that time period that these people maintain their positions and limit their influence. So a couple of things just to summarize the 20th Amendment: moved inauguration up to January 20th and reduces the impact of lame ducks. The 22nd Amendment also impacts the presidency, and this is the amendment that says no president can serve more than 2 terms in office. So that might be a way to remember 2 terms. So just as some historical precedent, George Washington encouraged only serving 2 terms and set this precedent of this amount. So if you're thinking about it, 2 terms, that's 4 years each. So presidents can serve no more than 8 years. Now, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, is the only president to have served more than 2 terms. He did that before this amendment was put into place. He was elected for a 3rd term, but he died while he was in office. And really, this amendment was put into place because we were afraid of maybe the wrong person getting into office and potentially abusing power as a result of not having term limits. The 25th Amendment defines who will fill in for the president or vice president if they cannot fulfill their presidential duties. And often this is as a result of illness or sometimes death that could potentially happen. So anytime that the president undergoes a medical procedure, something prevents them from fulfilling their responsibilities, this says who will take over. So this is also called the line of succession, right? Who takes over for the president if they cannot serve. So context-wise, why we have this amendment, it was right after the assassination of John F. Kennedy. JFK was assassinated, and, historically, the vice president had always taken over. However, the vice president, Lyndon B. Johnson, had a heart condition, and there was some concern that he might also not be able to fulfill his presidential duties. So we wanted a set order of succession just in case something bad were to happen. So now we see that if the president can't serve, it's officially the vice president that takes over. And if the vice president can't serve, then it's the Speaker of the House, and there's a set line of succession just in case. Now, there are 8 presidents that have died in office before this amendment. You just have to write down 2. But William Henry Harrison, Taylor, Lincoln was assassinated, Garfield, McKinley, Harding, FDR, JFK. All of these presidents died prior to the 25th Amendment. Their VPs did take over. But the 25th Amendment outlines the formal process through which this happens. And since its ratification, the 25th Amendment has only been used once. And it was not because of illness or death, but President Nixon resigned due to the Watergate scandal. He believed that he was going to be impeached, so he resigned instead of that. And because of the 25th Amendment, his Vice President, Gerald Ford, became acting president immediately. Okay, so that covers the Electoral College and the presidency. And let's talk about the special circumstances, also the miscellaneous amendments. These don't really fit into any other category. That's why I have them here. So the first one is the 11th Amendment. And this amendment prohibits the federal courts from hearing cases in which a state is being sued by an individual from another state or country. This amendment it's not a very popular amendment. It's an annoying amendment because it's not very hard it's pretty hard to remember. But really what it does is states are protected from lawsuits by citizens of other states. So you cannot sue a state that you are not a resident of. This is going to overturn a court case, Chisholm versus Georgia. So if you ever see that court case, your mind should go to the 11th Amendment. And just a way to think about this, aliens can't sue. And if you kind of look at the word aliens, it looks like there's two ones. I don't know, that might help you guys. But aliens, right, someone not from here can't sue like a state or a country that they're not a resident of. Then we have the 21st Amendment, and this amendment repealed the 18th. That's its only purpose, and it's the only amendment that has ever repealed or changed another one. Now, remember, prohibition of alcohol was to try and fix social problems. However, it was way too difficult to enforce, and it failed to have that intended effect of eliminating crime and other problems. It actually caused more organized crime. So the 21st Amendment eliminated the 18th Amendment. And then we have the 27th and final amendment to our Constitution as of right now. This prohibits any law that increases or decreases the salary of members of Congress from taking effect until the start of the next term cycle. So Congress can set its own pay through law. That is a power given to it in the Constitution. But this is preventing them from doing it while that particular representative is in office. So this is also known as the Compensation Amendment. And really, this is to prevent congressional misconduct, right? Because what's to say that they don't get in there while they're still in office, pass a law that increases their salary by $100,000, and then they get that benefit. So this is to prevent some corruption and misconduct. So think of this motto, right? We can't pay ourselves, ... right now, right? It will go into effect the next term, and for those that are, elected into office for that next term. All right, guys, so that is all 27 amendments. We've covered them all, and I know it's a lot, but for this set, remember, our objectives were to explain how amendments have changed the structure and function of the federal government, including the presidency and the Electoral College, and explain the provisions of the 11th, 21st, and 27th Amendments and why we have them, their context. So just as we've been doing, answer those questions in Edpuzzle, record the correct answers on your note sheet, and let me know if you guys have any questions, if you're stuck on any of these. But thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys in class. See ya.